gang. Welcome to Shop Talk on the Road. This is not going to last long. I tried my best. I'll put it back on every once in a while. I'll put it back on every once in a while. But first and foremost, thanks to everybody here on the bus that is here with us, and especially everybody that's joined online. Doing our best for a mobile webinar right now, so hang with us. We're not AV experts. We do a lot of software, not a lot of hardware, but that's okay. We're excited to talk about all things ops, and especially navigating the 7 C's of your tech stack. Good deal. First and foremost, again, if I haven't met you personally, that's weird because I've usually met everybody on these webinars, but I'm Brad Smith, co-founder and CEO of Sonar. I got a bunch of really cool folks here that we're going to hang out with. Please connect with us online or on LinkedIn. We're going to see a little bunch of notes at the bottom of it. Click that, jump on LinkedIn and connect with us if you haven't already. We're going to go left to right. Christian, kick us off.
Hey everyone, Christian Kletzel. I'm the CEO and co-founder of UserGems. UserGems can track your champions, support job changes, tell you who's leaving so you can prevent churn, tell you where they're going so you can talk to them again. And by doing this, also keep your Salesforce up to date.
Love it. We're a big UserGems shop over at our house at Sonar. Can't say enough good things about them. James.
I'm James MacArthur, head of RevOps Partnerships and Community at New. New is a Salesforce native quote-to-cash solution built to make your entire revenue lifecycle as easy as possible. High speed to lead, really easy to install. I joined the company for the product. Love it.
Love it. I'm still trying to do my mustache. It's not working. Mr. Fezza.
Yeah, hi. Chris Fezza, co-founder and CEO of Operatus. You may have known us previously as Admin Within, but we rebranded about 2 weeks ago. We do all things revenue operations, Salesforce, HubSpot, and every other go-to-market tool management. So, over to you.
I love it. Last but not least.
Hey everybody, Trent Allen here representing WizOps community. I assume if you're watching this webinar, it's probably where you heard about this, so you know much about the WizOps community, but it's the best revenue ops gathering of people, yeah, that's what I'm doing here.
Only real place to be in RevOps.
Only real community for actual operators.
I've got a little bit of bias, but yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's right. I love it. We've got a lot to jam about today, and we were very specific in picking these folks because one of their expertise, but two being very nautical themed. Going into our happy hour that we have later tonight over at
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Thank you. I point over at Chris Operatus because they've done a great job coordinating that and getting everything sponsored, so can't thank you all enough for that. But we're staying in theme. We're going to be navigating the 7 C's of your tech stack, and we're going to jump right in. We're going to go through a lot of them. Trent's got some cheat sheet over here, by the way, behind my head if y'all get lost on anything. But the very first thing that we're going to talk about is customer journey mapping. I'm going to, by the way, this is not rehearsed. We did not go through like certain scripts or anything. If you want real, authentic banter, you're about to get it. But James, I'm going to start with you because I know this is something that you talk about often and you post on LinkedIn about often. When you think about navigating that C, what do you think about?
So the number one thing around customer journey mapping is actually taking a step back. So the only way to truly do your customer journey in a meaningful way is to take a step back from the front lines, because very often we get sucked into this, hey, did you do that field change? Hey, did you build that flow? Hey, this thing isn't working. Can you help me troubleshoot? I can't close this opportunity. Endless. It's endless. But until you take a step back, look holistically at the entire path your customer takes from the first moment they hear about your company all the way through where they tell you to step into the sun. If you don't look at that entire thing holistically, map every single point, you're not actually going to truly understand what your customer goes through and not truly understand the space within that you can truly improve their lives and, frankly, everything about yours.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the coolest things, I'm going to open it up to everybody to jump after this, but I think one of the coolest things about this group that we have, especially James talking about customer journey mapping, we're all software buyers. We have been through that for, I won't age everybody, but decades plus over here. And so I think the unique part about the lens that we all get to look through is that we get to not only map that out ourselves and help our company do it, but we're also experiencing it from the other end as we purchase software. Open up the floor to anybody else thinking about customer journey mapping.
I think the biggest thing it does in, and as operators, like especially with like the idea of like RevOps and sort of being, the holistic overview and not being siloed by department. I think doing the customer journey mapping kind of forces that mentality up front, where you're saying like, hey, stop thinking about just what is this specific section of things that I own or that my team owns, and start thinking about how they all connect too, and where there might, things might be dropped along the way. So I feel like it's really helpful in like framing out how you even approach what are the problems that I need to solve.
Agree more.
Yeah, I think for me it fits into the next C that we're gonna touch on, but it's the consolidation. Like for me, it's understanding. So maybe before we go there, it's really understanding. Okay, they have a need to solve. Everyone's looking a little bit different based on the technology that they're having. But I mean, we know from our own experience, the first thing we try to do is, can I solve this myself before I get any new technology in? So understanding what everyone's using and how, like, where the white spaces and where they're not, helps us actually then sell to them if they have the need. Because they are working 100%, everyone's working on consolidation. So how can you actually sell despite them consolidating?
So yeah, I would also say, like, your customer journey is the customer's first interaction with you. You only get one first attempt, right? So if your implementation, your onboarding isn't a seamless process, it doesn't matter how great your tool is, you're already leaving a bad taste in their mouth. So they might have went through a good sales process and they get handed off to somebody else. But if that gets fumbled, it just, like, they're going to not, from the onset, they're going to be looking to see, like, did we make the right purchase? Do we even want to renew with them? Like, so you need to make sure you map it correctly. So you're thinking prospect first. You're thinking customer first every time. And like you were saying, like, we get caught up in the weeds and the different parts of it. And it's hard to take the step back when you're looking at multiple teams that are touching it. And how is that handoff happening? Is the customer happy? Having checkpoint, like, make sure in that journey you have checkpoints along the way, midway, and then, like, ongoing with health checks and stuff. But if you're not doing that, you could lose a great customer and they don't care that you have the best tool out there.
Yeah, it's honestly, how many times have we all been asked for a roadmap of the work we're doing? How often have we been asked, hey, how can you do the work of a director? Can you be more strategic? The only true way for RevOps to be able to take the step back and do that reasonably well and truly understand where the business is going is doing that collaborative customer journey mapping, because that's going to give you the full picture of everything your customer goes through and tell your entire team from executives all the way down, like, we've got a handle on this. We know exactly where we're going. We know exactly what to build for.
That's it. Yeah, and you can shadow a whole customer in their journey. Like, as soon as they sign, you can sit on the implementation and watch kind of what's happening and see how it's done to see where the improvements can be.
That's one of the things we talk about in the RevOps circles so often. It's like, if you're starting a new job in the RevOps space, go tag along, go ride shotgun with someone, find out what that entire customer journey looks like. You're also a buyer of it, and so you can provide feedback there. You don't have to sit on mute. Actually, sit there and use your voice. We're gonna keep moving. We got 6 more seats to go through. We got some time to jam. Christian, you mentioned this. So I'm gonna actually let you kick this off. Consolidating your tech stack. C number 2, consolidating your tech stack. How do you think about that?
Yeah, from both perspectives, right? I mean, I'm thinking about I as a company, I as the buyer, I'm thinking of, okay, how can I consolidate my tech stack? And then I as a seller, how can I sell despite others thinking about consolidation? Yeah. And I think there's always these, like, we are RevOps people, like, we're very technical minded. So I think the first thought is always, okay, can I build this myself, or what elements of this can I build myself? So I think from a RevOps perspective, we are now, I think, very much in a phase where I've seen a whole lot of exploration happening. Absolutely. Because I think it's actually my job as the RevOps person to figure out what is actually what is the functionality this vendor provides, right? How much of what I need can I get from one person, from one vendor, because it means that these tools probably work together much better than if I have several vendors. So I think that's why we've seen a lot of, like, in the last few months, a lot of more conversations happening, but not necessarily buying happening, because it's actually identifying what's there, and then I map out how does this vendor compare to my needs.
Yes.
But then as a seller, I'm always thinking, okay, if this is happening, and we need to be very, very clear that this is happening. Like, we have our conversations with the potential buyer, but at the very same time, this buyer is evaluating what of this functionality can I get through the tools that I already have. So we need to be much, much better in actually identifying what tools they have, because they will run this evaluation, and then be very clear in our talk track of how we stick out in these conversations. How can I position myself against them trying to do it themselves or with the tools that they're having?
Absolutely. What do you think? I'm putting you on the spot.
I'm a little scared to be one of your buyers, and you might come up with a
Well, I mean, as a seller, your job is to hook the client, right?
Yeah. It's true. Look, I think the consolidation idea is interesting, right? Because I think there's, for probably the last like 5 to 10 years, people have been really focused on like, hey, I need to have the absolute best tool for the job, right? And so if as a software provider, if I can be like the best at this certain thing, like I can, kind of create my niche and I can get, a lot of people buy my product. And I think that's been super useful up to a point. That point is, when some of these go-to-market teams start having 15, 20, different tools that like they're using, it's a lot of jumping around. It's a lot of context switching. And I think where companies feel the burden the most, it's not just like financial burden of having so many softwares. It's the data quality and their ability to like track data consistently through the systems and through that customer journey. And so I feel like that's one of the things where I'm always like, hey, before you think about adding, yet another sales engagement platform or yet another, data tool or bringing things to a data warehouse, like you need to think about like, what's the burden that this is going to add from like an integration and data management perspective? How are you actually going to be able to control the data to keep it, to be high quality? Because data quality and inability to do reporting, pipeline, forecasting, all that stuff, it's like still just as big of a problem as it was, 10 years ago before everyone had all of these tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think you got to think about it from the same principles of UI UX when you think about web design.
Yes.
Which is like every single click you lose 20 to 25% of people.
Yeah.
Every single click. The same principle holds true when designing a tech stack, which is if someone needs to switch out of a platform to go do another thing, you're going to lose. It's a heck of a lot worse than 20%. So you're looking 20, 30%. So staying centricity, designing your tech stack around one consistent experience for everyone who's using it is entirely critical. And as a RevOps person, you should not be thinking about the best design necessarily for you.
Yeah.
You should be thinking about the best design for your customers and for your end users.
Yeah, exactly. Like if the team doesn't use the tool, you have the best tools out there, it doesn't matter. It's all about enablement and ease of use in their workflow. At the end of the day, we're trying to allow our go-to-market teams to spend time on revenue-generating activities, not updating a CRM or going into a outreach or sales loft and doing what they need to do there. We need to make that a seamless experience. And when we've kind of gotten to this point with growth at all costs, where we've got a very bloated tech stacks, but with smart growth now, and there are teams trying to do like platforms that are inventing new things to expand on. You may already have a great tool that your team works out of now has this new feature, and you as a RevOps person need to stay on top of that and say, well, we've been using this other tool, but we could just bring it in-house here and this tool, and then it's a more seamless workflow for that person, because at the end of the day, they need to be selling deals or implementing people. They don't need to be updating 8 things.
Absolutely. The one other caveat to that, and we're going to jump over to what you were talking about a second ago, controlling that data through your tech stack. But as we think about the data quality and the tech stack ownership, one thing for everybody to keep in mind, it's been a weird 3 years. Call it COVID, call it markets, call it layoffs, whatever you want to call it. It has been a weird 3 years. And there's been a lot of fluidity in resources. And you think about, oh, well, this person left the business for whichever reason. Well, they just orphaned or abandoned that software too. Not only did they orphan or abandon that software, but they also orphaned and abandoned the data that goes into it. So when we think about our third C, controlling your data, I'm going to start with Trent actually, because I've watched Trent for years now controlling data, being a customer of ours for a while, and just also him growing all through his RevOps journey. How do you think about the controlling of data?
Yeah, I mean, obviously every tool that you use is going to house some type of data, right? And then you want to bring a certain subset of that data into your CRM using it as a single source of truth, which can be a debatable topic if a single source of truth can really exist. But, the idea is you want to make sure that whatever tool you're buying works nicely with the rest of your tech stack so that you can fluidly move that data in and out of all the tools that your teams are using. And funny enough, one of the reasons why we ended up buying UserGems is because it integrated with lean data. It like had these different features to it where it was easy to fit into our tech stack, right? And so when we were looking at everything else, we're like, well, it's not going to be as seamless, but like we could use this tool, and also your customer journey is great. But but yeah, it's like the data is great, and you can get all this analytics and all these insights. And we were talking the other day. I was like, yeah, like I don't mind pulling reports and modeling data for people, but I want to know what they're going to use it for. Because at the end of the day, I can give you all the data you need, but we need the most effective, actionable data. And to be able to pass and get that right, you got to look at the integrations, the connectors, the APIs. How does that pull on your Salesforce or your CRM? It's all very important. So, and it's tricky. It's tricky to get data passing correctly because I want someone to click something, get the most up-to-date, actionable data. And sometimes some tools don't pass that as quick. And identifying that and knowing that so that your team can act appropriately is really important.
Totally. Christian?
I think it's about, I think so much about from data to action, like the drop of, because I think we got so much really good data over the last few years. Like everyone's talking about intent. Someone clicks on something, they visit my website, they use a template. But ultimately, the data is just the first piece. How can I make sure that consistently someone actions that data? And I think that's what, like you mentioned, someone leaving. Like the second someone leaves, it means that this person who's maybe managing this workflow or managing the enablement of my SDR team is gone, and suddenly all the new SDRs are not going to get trained on this, which means nobody's acting on the signal. So controlling the data, I think, is in the first place getting the really good data from all the sources, making it available, and then making sure there's this workflow happening. Ultimately, it's all about someone doing an action with the data.
Absolutely.
I got a semi-controversial take, which is,
ooh, I love this.
The best way to control your data is have it all in one place.
Okay.
And by that, I mean...
You're triggering. Over there.
Very triggering. I love this.
Salesforce centricity, like whatever your CRM is, wherever your team is operating, you need to have all the data they need to do their jobs in front of them. And you should make sure that as many systems as you can be operated within that single user interface without the need to leave. That's one of the things I really like. That's one of the reasons I came to New. It's one of the things I really like about like lean data. It's anytime I have to leave a platform in order to see the next step, you lose me a little bit. And so the same thing is true for your data. Anytime you have to stitch two pieces together, that's a massive point of failure in your architecture that you will need to monitor. And if you're not, that's the place it's going to break.
So I'm not sure if I'm agreeing with you or if I'm going to be contrary, but you let me know how it sounds. But
I got a hook.
Be careful.
I feel like I talk to people about this a fair amount, and they always want to know, like, how do we think about like reporting? Should we be taking everything and bringing it to a data warehouse, and then do we throw like Looker on top of that, or like what should be our strategy? I was like, I think you need to think about how you're accomplishing different things potentially. And what you're describing, get everything in one place, get it in CRM. I think that anything that is going to be what I'd call like actionable reporting, meaning like I'm going to look at it and I'm going to do something based on that, use that to direct my day or my week and that sort of thing. For any kind of individual contributor, frontline manager, absolutely, it should just be all like within Salesforce, in the CRM, easy to use, one place. I think when you start to get into like more executive level reporting, measurement against targets, things you might be producing at like a little bit higher level, which they don't need to be looking at every day, but you do need to trend over time and that sort of thing. That's when I'm like, okay, if you have the capabilities to stand up like an analytics or reporting layer and like properly support that, do that in addition to.
Sure.
100% agree.
I completely agree with you because it's like, have you ever gotten a finance person to log into Salesforce?
Hardly ever.
Sometimes,
So,
but
like,
rare.
Just to hit run report.
Yeah, exactly. The experience needs to be where people operate.
Yes.
And so by centricity, I don't mean put everything in Salesforce. Everybody needs to live in Salesforce.
Sure.
But what I mean is like where people operate, that's where the data needs to be.
Totally. All right, we're going to keep moving. We're halfway through this already, which is kind of crazy to think about. C number 4, change management. And I'm actually going to start with Chris, only for the one reason with Operatus and getting to see so many different customers you work with and knowing how change can be easy to go through and very, very difficult to go through. What's the secret sauce in change management for the 4th C?
There's two things. There's like the first is the human element. The second is technical risk. So I'll talk about human element first. Everyone says people are hesitant to change. Honestly, people always look forward to change when it's changed for the better. I think the concern is that they don't always know that. So I think the biggest thing is like focusing on what are the benefits going to be, and what are the benefits like specific to maybe each team or department that you're trying to roll out changes for. Like people they just don't want to get like shit pushed on them, but if they're getting something out of it that they can like really take away, they'll be happy to kind of come along for the ride. So you have to kind of build that story early on so that they get excited about the change. Sometimes change takes a while, and you got to have them kind of be on board and be supportive of it all along. Technical risk of change. I mean, like we were talking about big tech stacks. These things they've gotten more and more complex over time, and so I think we need to just kind of tread carefully, learn a little bit more from like standard engineering processes around DevOps and change management, and run through a structured process. Things need to go through the proper test environments. They need to be tested properly. There needs to be the ability to roll back changes if you need to, that sort of thing. And so I think coming up with like some good standard change management strategies that you can apply across the team is really important. That is somewhere we help clients with a lot, who like they've been running in kind of an unstructured fashion. Like here are some basic things you can put in place that will just make it so that your changes are less risky, higher chance of success. Tools always work. People are happy with them. They like them. It's it's a good thing for everyone.
Totally. Change management. Biggest challenge. I'm going to gear this up a little bit. Switch up a little bit. Rapid fire. Biggest challenge you run into with change management.
Not having champions adopting the new processes that can carry the torch for you once you pass on the information on how to do the new one, that then can get the rest of the team to follow suit.
I completely agree.
UAT planning and execution.
Ooh, how so?
So getting your test scripts written correctly, really hard, and in a way that also educates the end users, and then getting the leadership for each of those departments to actually agree to let you to put those people in a room and be like, this seller's off the floor for 2 hours. And get them involved. I think it's honestly, that's probably the biggest challenge. The rest of it's just work.
When they want the project done quickly but don't want to dedicate the time to you.
Right.
Exactly.
We've never heard that one. We don't know what you're talking about.
I want to roll out a 1,000-hour project, but I wanted to do 5 hours of user training.
Yeah, why not? Biggest challenge you think about?
I think the best one was already. I was following the champion, champion leaving, champion not supporting. I think the other one that I see often is for example, we as a vendor, we have a best practice of here's how something should be done. And oftentimes it's a painful process even to arrive there. Like it's about automation, it's about notification, it's about like, is everyone in your team really doing what you think they're gonna do? And for us, we would actually kind of like skip 2 months if they would just say, okay, here are the best practices. So it's really actually kind of like trusting the vendor a little bit in based on those many months, like many implementations that you've done it.
Yeah.
Like basically kind of like helping them implement something where they're not fully like, agreeing with.
It is such an interesting, dichotomy, just such an interesting thing to think about, because we've all gone through this like roller coaster of buying software. We're getting to the peak of it, like, hell yeah, we're excited, this thing's going to solve all the problems. And we start implementing, and it's almost like trust, and almost it's like, I got to get over-validated now. Now are you skeptical about what you bought? Now are you scrutinizing it too heavily? And so you're right, and I'm not exactly sure where that trust gets eroded or why it starts to tip that way, but yeah, everybody's so excited, you stroke the check, you hit your number for the month, then you actually go implement it, it's like, wait a minute, I'm a little skeptical of this. Is this actually going to work? I think a lot of it comes down to the enrollment that you get and agency that you can create.
It's the never-ending sales cycle.
It also goes back to that customer journey thing of like, how do you keep that plateau happening, keep that expectation and that marrying of like reality very seamless.
Yep.
And so they don't have that plateau moment of just like, I don't know if this is going to work, and you have to reinsure them. You have to like do all that. It's thinking about that again. And
Mark from Catalyst, he talked about like we are in a SaaS environment where it's not you buy the product once and then you use it forever like a bicycle, but it's rather SaaS. So every year you evaluate again, do I need this tool? So it's actually not in our interest to like give so much value up front and then just stay flat, because then all I see for the next 11 months is like we're staying flat, but rather how can I give a little bit of value ongoing forever? And that's also how we need to structure our product, which totally makes sense, but it's a different thought process.
I also think that what you're touching on is like really smart, which is the idea of kind of continuing education and new user adoption.
Yeah.
very often what ends up happening is you'll roll out a product to a team. You do a fantastic job. New person gets hired. That person gets trained by some random person on that team who might actually know.
If they get trained,
yeah. It's like a game of telephone. Like it's been passed down 3 times. Like who knows who's teaching the process?
Exactly. And that person gets dropped off a cliff into the world, and it's basically like, what are they supposed to do? And then all of a sudden, that company triples in size. A third of that company now understands what your product actually does, and so then the next sales cycle, you're sitting there going, I swear this is valuable. Like, go ask these people.
Yeah, I swear we did it for a reason. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. We got 3 more C's to go. Sorry, no, Chris, go for it, man. Cut me off.
I was gonna say, you were talking about implementation before. There's like a really good story about Gainsight and how they were having, like, I think, problems with like customer adoption, and also with people like seeing the value of the platform, that sort of thing. And Gainsight, I think, fairly complex, and the implementation time was quite a long time. So what they did were like, our goal is to figure out how can we make our implementation 3 weeks or less, cut down from, I think it was 5+ weeks, like 5 to 8 weeks before that. So they were like, you know what, we're not going to implement everything up front. Christian, your point, we're going to focus on like what are the few most important things that we can quickly deliver on, start to see value, and then over time, they get more and more and more.
Yeah.
And super helpful for them.
Yeah, the non-buyer is, like a CFO is going to be like, we haven't gotten any ROI yet. Why? And you have to keep telling them it's coming. But if you give them those quick little wins, like you guys do great with historic lead, like dump, right? Like in that first part, like, I don't know when someone's going to change the job again, but here's the past year of all these historic, you're getting quick ROI that way, right? And then it keeps that confidence of that tool moving.
I think, not to go to sports analogy on it, but we're certainly proud of our #1 Braves in Atlanta, especially when we're out here in the Giants. Take that record. Thank you.
That's right.
But when you start to think about it, you're not going to throw your closer out there in the first inning. You're going to bring that value when it needs to be brought. You want to maybe get a home run or 2 in the first inning or 2, but you're not going to be able to play all of your cards. It kind of goes back to your point of like, bring that value along the journey. You don't have to have it all the way on day 1, but you want to have it at the right time in the right place. So.
Is it too much to say always be closing?
Always be closing. Sure. I don't think that's too cliche to say at all.
Always be closing.
Is that the 8th C? We didn't even think about that. The closing C.
I thought it was always be swashbuckling.
Always be swashbuckling. There we go. All right. I am getting into our 5th C. Keep it rolling. Clarity into data flow. And I think this is really cool, knowing so many people that we've been friends with forever that watch this architectural diagram that we all run into. But James, I'm going to start with you. When you think about the clarity into your data flow and how you were talking about it earlier, one spot, keep it all in one place. How do you navigate that C?
So it's very dependent on the system, very dependent on the architecture, because you'll run into some companies that have decided, I'm going to build all of this within, we're at Dreamforce, so I'm building it all within Salesforce. And that can be very difficult, actually, because the problem with clarity into your data flow, it's not just the data that's going into the system, it's tracking the change of that data over time. And so it's looking at, we get a lot of times we go, well, how has our pipeline changed over the last 6 months? Yeah. Traditional answer in Salesforce is set a snapshot.
Yeah.
If you're going into a data warehouse, it's set Fivetran to do intermittent pulls. And it depends on what that data stack is. So gaining control into your data flow is understanding where the data is coming from, but then at the same time, if you did your customer journey right, if you did it right, every single touch your team has, where it came from, where that data needs to go, and how it's going to be reported on. At the end of the day, you should be able to trace every single touch your team has and be able to roll that up against your KPIs and fully understand what you're doing.
Completely agree. Anybody else thinking about the clarity of the data flow?
Was there
I'll give you one quick anecdote that I had.
Okay.
Most recently, David Obram was in town a couple months ago, CEO at Salesforce. We were having breakfast, and him and I were talking about data flow and how we think about this on day 1. And it all starts on day 1. Most of the time, if we're in an office, somebody's grabbing that expo marker, and we're whiteboarding the hell out of what step 1 to step 2, step 2 to step 3 looks like, and so on and so forth. How often, 90 days later, are we going back and looking, hey, did that data actually flow in the way that we wanted it to? And it's so interesting because we spend a lot of time. Those are expensive meetings, whether it be virtually on a Miro or Mural whiteboard or on a real whiteboard. You have a lot of leaders in a room who are creating a process. But how often are you validating that data flow? And 90 days later, we have to go run these reports. Every 90 days, we got to go sit in front of our board to go talk about these things. You want that that data to be highly integrity, and rarely are we audited. So
one thing that I think really helps, and we started doing this with a few of our clients, is anytime you're planning like some type of change or enhancement, obviously, like you say, you always want to understand the why. Then you take that and you're like, okay, well, how are we going to measure it? Like, so we know why we're doing this. We're hoping it's going to give us a higher conversion rate. Okay, like where's the report that we're going to measure it? Do we need to put anything new in place to track against it? And part you can use that one if you're doing any experimentation with your changes to make sure like, hey, is this really getting the impact that I thought it was going to? Otherwise, I'm going to revert what I was doing before. Two is like tracking over time, and you can set up different types of like exclusion reports or something like that. There, you set up your Salesforce report or whatever with the specific criteria, and you're like, if there's errors or issues coming through, hey, maybe this field value is now blank and it should never be blank. And you say, schedule that, I think only once there's report results or something like that. And so it'll send you those type of things only when something shows up in the report.
Actually,
and it shouldn't. Yeah.
Totally. I dig it. All right. We got 2 C's left. We're hanging in there. All right. YAR. We're hanging in there.
YAR.
Collective YAR.
Yo,
all right.
yo.
6C. I can't say it with a straight thing. 6C. Compliance and governance. And this was interesting. When we were prepping for this, we're kind of coming up on these 7 C's, and I think this is one of the ones that we were all pretty adamant about. Like, you need to be pretty on point for your compliance and the way that you posture yourself. I'm going to raise my hand loud and proud. I'm not a compliance expert, and I know a lot of y'all's backgrounds aren't necessarily leaning towards that, but it is so wildly important. You're hearing Salesforce talk about this all the time now with their Shield products and with event monitoring and everything like that, so that you can have a very tight and compliant org. Why is that so important? And I'm going to let whoever wants to start on the compliance side.
I'll just say.
Jump in.
Okay. So let's say you spent the last 6 months building a data warehouse. And that data warehouse is supposed to be your total window into your business. All of a sudden, half your data flows break. How do you know where those data flows came from? Personal identifying information from your clients ends up on a front-facing thing. How do you know where that broke?
Yeah.
It's the idea behind compliance is actually knowing and the reason for it is when things go wrong or when they are misaligned to a core goal we all have, which is privacy of our customer data and security of trust and safety, ostensibly. It's understanding all of those critical points. And we've talked about clarifying your data flow, controlling your data. That's the biggest thing RevOps can do, other than understanding Salesforce privacy settings or HubSpot privacy. But that's kind of the biggest thing that we can do to really support that side of the org. That said, no RevOps person I know should be in charge of compliance.
Ooh, hot take. I don't disagree with you on that. Yeah. I think the one thing I'll share, and I'm going to switch this back to a little bit of aligned with the other C's we've talked about, customer journey. I think compliance is now, objectively speaking, part of everybody's customer journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have all been there. We felt it. Shout out to Kevin over here who's working the mic and working the sticks. He's felt this on our sales team. We get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Or we thought we got to the finish line. Like, oh, by the way, I'd love to introduce you to my CISO. We're going to go ahead and do a full security audit. And so these lengthen these journeys. They lengthen these sales cycles. So it'd be remiss if we didn't bring that up as a reflection of the sales cycle. Trent, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, more importantly too, and as we've had more, people join the sales cycle and things like that, right? And everyone is trying to get their SOC 2 and all their other type of data security, right? Like, we come from world of financial operations, and we have a lot of personal information on people. So, the compliance there has to be very tight.
Yeah.
What tools do you have that sub-processor? Who has access to those tools? What's the governance on what they can see or what they can manipulate? All that's super important, because at the end of the day, kind of back to what you said, breaches will happen. It's being able to pinpoint them quickly, fixing it, and being open about it. In a sense of hey, this happened, you got affected, but the quicker you respond to it can create trust. It's just, we live in a tech world. Breaches are going to happen. You don't want it to happen for yourself, but it would be foolhardy to think it wouldn't. And I think you're right. Now every deal cycle has some type of, hey, what's your security documentation?
Okay.
And then they'll come and grill you and say, hey, we need to know X, Y, and Z about it. We use Sonar, and we're a financial ops plus, but I've heard people say oh, I just wish, maybe Sunrise a bit more security documentation or something. You guys definitely heard that and worked on it. But it's like little things like that, and it can make or break a deal now. Like you said, you think they're about to sign the paper, and then someone goes, oh, I forgot to bring in so-and-so of compliance. Like, they want to know if we can pass all these tests because we have to go for our PCI. We have to go for our SOC 2 again in 3 months.
It's an investment. You got to invest in the acronym soup.
And in the time of AI now, I feel like companies are just like catching up to what they should really be doing from a compliance perspective. Like, you can't, have people dropping in company data into like open source AI, language models and that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of it's a big door open. I think that companies need to try to figure out and also which vendors can they use the AI offerings from without it then also kind of contributing their company data into models that they might not be able to.
Yeah, totally. Good.
The second piece of this, which is the governance side, is actually I think yes to everything everybody said, which is understanding person identifying information, understanding where it's coming from, collaborating with your CISO. Again, we should not be the security department. But what we should be is the governance department. Data governance.
Yep.
Understanding what the definition of all of the different words we use are. What is a customer? What is a prospect? Do you think you all agree on it? I guarantee you, unless you've had a conversation where you pulled everybody into a room, been like, define what a prospect is, that answer is not the same.
Yeah.
And what if there was a tool that had a great data dictionary where you could see if people own processes and what they mean?
Wait.
Wait.
Is it
Doesn't Sonar have one?
Wait, is it a submarine?
I don't know what the name of that is.
Yeah. I mean,
But you're right,
Sonar's great.
Yeah.
Sonar is great. The data dictionary tool is awesome. No, we're not going to let Brad pitch his own product, but Sonar is great.
No, it is. Yeah. Chris, I know you were thinking about it too, but it does go back to this. You should have a definition for all these things. And if you don't, especially with the fluidity of resources, growing teams, you have to be able to educate people. What do you think on the compliance side?
I think that I'm thinking about where I'm most scared about is actually not kind of when we as a company buy a product and then obviously they have a SOC 2 and then we go through all of this, but rather actually what the individual employees just by randomly signing up for products, what information they are giving up from our Salesforce, I think, or Gmail, or it's so easy with just 2 clicks to actually give someone access to everything.
Yeah,
I bet only 3 to 5% of companies actually block authentication of new applications through Salesforce. Most places it's just just everyone, I can sign up for something, you can sign up for a different tool, it all just starts connecting in.
Totally.
I don't want to single anyone out, but there are sales tools that enable your sales users to sign in, and it will pull all of your data from your Salesforce and be modified by anyone who has the logins.
A very useful tool.
They're wonderful tools, but they are the opposite of everything we're talking about from compliance and governance. They actually make it incredibly difficult for you to know where changes are coming from because they all look like they're a single user, but it could literally be any human.
There's keeping track of those CDCs and Salesforce, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
CDCs.
Who's got the change data capture rights to it?
Maybe we know enough about that.
And I will say this before we move on to anything you said. If your company doesn't currently have an AI compliance policy, you're behind the
Build
thing.
one.
You need to know what tools your team can use. You need to let them know what they're allowed to use OpenAI or open source for, and that needs to be signed off on and watched because not all tools are using it in-house. AI. They are connected to an open source.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful what you end up sharing in there because you can accidentally give away customer data. And now you're on the lam if they find out, right?
Totally.
So having that policy in place yesterday needed to happen. But it's okay. You can still build one. But it needs to be very quickly because we're in this age of everybody wants to do AI. That's what all Dreamforce is about.
I love that you dropped on the lam.
Yeah.
Just casually in a conversation.
Oh, gosh. All right. We got 1C left. I love this, too, because it has a little less to do with the technology side of things, which we're all technologists at heart, and we love playing around with our softwares all day, every day. But this is more human-centric, and this is collaboration and communication. And I think as much as we invest in our systems, how they work, our data flow, our compliance, everything that we talked about, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it'd be all moot if we didn't have good collaboration and communication. Chris, I know y'all preach this a lot with Operatus, how you like to have your customers really tightly collaborate and communicate. I'm going to let you kick this off.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a little bit harder as an operator, right? Because you want to create like the best standard process you can, and like how it's going to work and apply everywhere. But to be honest, the way that collaboration works best is understanding what's most important to each individual person that you have to interact with or collaborate with. Because if you can help kind of get on their level, each individual, and understand that, you can know how to format your communications to them in a way that they'll be most receptive. And when you have people on board, the ship's going to keep sailing smooth.
They're going to sink the ship, baby. Sink the ship. I love it.
I think that with like communication, it's that exact thing. Like if you're writing documentation and you're trying to do an enablement thing, you want to always keep the end users with them in mind. Like what's in it for them and what's going to stand out in their process. And if that means writing slightly different stylized documents for different teams, different people, so that they see it and buy into it, and so you can collaborate on it correctly. Because a lot of times we're building processes that are the whole customer journey or are multiple team things, but each of those teams have different parts of it and only care about certain stuff. So like highlighting to them like what's important so that when the collaboration happens, everyone knows what they own, you know what's important for them and why they're going to follow through.
Absolutely. James?
I mean, think about all the old-timey and like how ships are built today, where it's like every single person, you have hundreds of people scurrying over this giant frame of a thing, putting everything together. That's the same thing we're doing building these companies. The same thing we're doing but go-to-market side, except that they're not necessarily people. They might be data points. They might be tools. And it's like you need to understand where every single one of those things are, or else the entire system can break. And it's by collaboration and communication, it's understanding, okay, how my end users using it, communicating with them, checking in, rep rides, the whole thing.
Yep.
From a executive level, helping them understand what KPIs are, how things are actually working, not going too deep, and like all of that. So collaboration and communication is essential to being able to do literally anything.
Yeah.
But for building a company, it's kind of all that matters, because if you built a thing and you didn't tell anybody about it, did you build it?
Yeah. I've joked around people. We're not all robots yet. And there's no way that we know what something else is doing without some good explanation, collaboration, and communication. Christian, what do you think?
I think from a company perspective, I really like it like this. I see it as we're growing the company. It was so easy to communicate what we're working on when it was like 2 A's or 4 A's, and now it's 10 A's. And I know it's so much more difficult that if we have something new, that everyone acts on it. So for me, it's actually kind of like a spectrum between RevOps and enablement. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that you need to, for everything, think about what is the outcome that I need to have, and then the question is actually on the spectrum, how do you best achieve it? Is it all about enablement and training the people, or is it actually something that RevOps can take care with, like notification or automation?
Love it. Absolutely love it. All right.
Controversial statement.
Ooh.
Everyone is sales.
Oh, that's not controversial at all.
Every single person in a company is sales.
Oh,
all right. I'm like the unpopular opinion guy that just states the popular opinion, apparently. I'm glad for it.
I think you're going to say diversity is an old word.
Wow.
All right. And there go half the webinar viewers.
And I'll bring it back to the point of collaboration.
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking of all the 7 C's we talked about, customer journey, data, all that stuff. A good, well-built CRM that has the right data, has the right handoffs, has the right customer journey, you will create collaboration from a seamless experience within your CRM, whether it's a Salesforce or other tools. That collaboration can happen by building all of that with the full journey in mind and the communication of the changing the processes. And that will keep the ship running effectively and efficiently.
Totally.
So that's lunch.
And look, yeah, right. And we wouldn't be here. Look, we went through 7 C's, and the one that we did not say the most of, but we'll bring it up now as we wrap up. And I'll give everybody a second to think about this. But we're here at a conference about CRMs and customers. And we talk about the customer journey and everything else. So in my final ask to everybody in a rapid fire type question, what was the one piece of advice that you would give to everybody watching, again, a very big RevOps contingency that we have watching these, that is going to help them don't sink their ship and keep their CRM afloat? What's the most important thing? If you give them one piece of advice, that's what it's going to be. And I'm going to start with Chris, because his name starts with C. Christian.
Yeah.
keep it simple. To be honest, like always ask yourself, do we need this? Is there a simpler way to do this? Like keeping your tech stack afloat. Just don't keep adding and adding and adding more shit on top.
I love that. Keep it simple, stupid. Christian.
Trent. Call on someone else.
I don't know. The first thing that came to mind is something that hopefully everyone's doing, maybe not. Back up your CRM and do it often.
Pretty smart.
Maybe once a week, because if something does go completely wild and all your data is messed up, your journey is not messed up, you have something to go back and reference to and like reload it. I know it seems silly to say, but there's probably people out there still not backing up their CRM. So I would say make sure if we're thinking about a CRM, you're capturing different points along the way to reset it if you have.
And own backup is awesome. It's so easy to use.
Love that. Love that. James, we're giving Christian some more time.
Yes.
All right, take a step back, slow down, because the reality is you're in there again, fixing this field value, fixing this flow, doing this thing, doing that thing. At the end of the day, what you're doing is a lot of busy work, and unless you have an eye on strategy, you're not impacting your organization the way you think you are. You may close 200 story points in a sprint. Congratulations. If at the end of the day KPIs don't improve, it doesn't matter.
It's nothing.
And so take a step back, slow down, look at the bigger picture, see the forest for the trees.
Starts with a C, like catch your breath.
Catch your breath and always be closing.
Yeah, always be closing. Christian, bring us home.
Oh God, what do I think? I think I'm always torn between the need for speed and like the I feel like actually this stopping for a second and thinking through what will the company in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months need that I can already do right now could help us a lot.
Totally.
I'm expanding on that.
Yeah.
If you get asked as a RevOps person, as a Salesforce admin, if you get asked anything about a report, a metric, a KPI, anything, go make a snapshot. Stop. Don't wait. Go make a snapshot in that moment in time.
I love it. All right, guys, we're getting right at the top of time. Biggest thing, first of all, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today. Christian, James, Chris, Trent. Really collective yar at the very end of this. Thank y'all so much for joining us and sharing, helping us navigate the 7 Cs. We're hanging around all week. We got a great happy hour. The team over at Operatus has put us together with Tequila Mockingbird. Please come check us out this afternoon. Most important, come hang out with us tomorrow with Salesforce 10. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.